We are on day 4 of the NFL free agency. 49ers have made a lot of moves over these first few days. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to put some grades to them next on Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. Hey, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of NFL free agency. This is the Inside the 49ers channel with Jack Hammer. I cover the 49ers for the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat. You can check out all of my work there at 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That is the Inside the 49ers blog at the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat. Just want to jump in and let's get right to it. The 49ers are continuing to make transactions. They made some new signings today. Not new players to the team, but some additional bringing some players back, I guess, re-signings as we call them. So with the 49ers today, they brought back a couple of depth pieces along the defensive line. It was T.Y. McGill comes back to the 49ers, and also right behind him at the linebacker position, the 49ers today bringing back Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. Both players signing one-year deals with the 49ers. These are good transactions for San Francisco when you look at the depth that they bring to this team. You look at the 49ers and what they've done so far in free agency, it is pretty much what you'd see from a typical 49ers free agency. One big splash signing, a bunch of other signings that just make sense to fill in spots around the team. They've signed 4 new players to the team. They have 4 additions, Javon Hargrave, Sam Darnold, Clelin Ferrell, and Isaiah Oliver. We'll get the grades on those 4 in a minute. But they've also brought back a bunch of their own. And really what they've done so far is I feel if you look at what the 49ers have done so far over the first 4 days, they've taken a defense that was number 1 in the league last year that made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. Right now, the way that this starting defense is assembled, I believe the 49ers defense has improved over where they were last year. If that's possible, we'll get into a little bit of my thoughts behind that in a moment. And now with those moves, and then it's time to start to fill in the depth behind that. And we've seen the 49ers doing a really good job of already. That's where the T.Y. McGill and the Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles deals come in. That's also where Kevin Givens being brought back yesterday comes in. So this is I think a pretty good start for the 49ers. Just really quick, let's take a look. Who are T.Y. McGill and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles? Some people might not really know a whole lot about McGill. He didn't join the 49ers until late last season. He actually joined them on October 20th. He was brought into the practice squad. He's been around the NFL since 2015, though. Originally got into the NFL as a undrafted free agent with the Seattle Seahawks back in 2015. So he started there. Then he ended up later on that season with the Indianapolis Colts, where he spent a couple seasons. He was with the Cleveland Browns in 2017. Then he went to the Eagles in 2018, and he was also with Philadelphia in 2020 for a bit. He was with the Chargers in between there, a little bit of 2018, a little bit of 2019, and then he'd been with the Minnesota Vikings in 2021. That's T.Y. McGill, his journey around the NFL. And when he got to San Francisco, I think he kind of found a good landing spot here. Like I said, he was signed to the roster, originally signed to the practice squad back in October on the 20th. He was then eventually promoted to the active roster on November 26th, and he made his 49ers debut that weekend on the road down in Los Angeles against the Rams, and a big win for the 49ers prior to their bye week. So good stuff there from T.Y. McGill. You look back at his season, he appeared in 9 regular season games in all 3 of the 49ers postseason contests. He registered 10 tackles, including 4 for loss. He had a couple of quarterback hits and 1 forced fumble. When it comes to T.Y. McGill, the one thing that I remember most is the game against the New Orleans Saints here at Levi Stadium. He had a big role in the goal line stand that they had there. Actually, it might have been a game against the Washington Commanders. I'm not sure exactly which one it was, but there was a goal line stand that they had during the season. here at Levi's. There was a couple of them. If you go back, that's one of the things that made this defense so good. But they were able to. He came out. He had a couple of really nice plays there, and so T.Y. McGill making doing a good job there as well. And then one other thing too. The other one was the signing of Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, the linebacker. This is a big signing for the 49ers, I think, in terms of what it brings. Last year in free agency, the 49ers big splash pickup was Travaris Ward. The other guys that they signed to the roster from outside were primarily brought in to do special teams work. And that's where Flanagan-Fowles has excelled. You look at what he's doing. He joined the 49ers as an undrafted free agent himself back May 3rd, 2019. He played for the Arizona Wildcats in college, was a safety there. He transitioned to linebacker in the NFL here with the 49ers. Spent 2019 on the team's practice squad. Then he had a strong training camp in 2020, making the active opening day roster. Since then, he's played in 45 regular season games, registering 31 tackles and a sack. He's also appeared in 6 postseason games for San Francisco, where he's added a tackle and a couple of other tackles on special teams. And like I said, he's really been a special team standout. Throughout his career, he's registered 29 total tackles and coverage. But last season, he really stood out on special teams. He had 15 tackles, which were 5th highest in the NFL last season. So big signing there for the 49ers in terms of their special teams and everything that they can do. So that's good stuff there for the 49ers. So Lucas doing a good job here, also picking me up. I said the Saints game because they did have a really nice goal line stand there, but that's right. It was the Commanders game. I knew it was one of those two. I got my goal line stands mixed up. So Lucas, I appreciate you for picking me up on that. So those are the new transactions that took place today for the 49ers. So we'll get into some of the other ones. I want to answer this one comment over here from Lucas, who says, my YouTube membership always gets paused. I don't get it. Why? Well, right now, Lucas, I don't have monetization on my channel, so you're not going to be able to have the membership at this point. I'm not sure exactly what happened with YouTube. I woke up Tuesday morning and then went to go do some stuff on YouTube late in the afternoon to get ready for the show that I had with Wayne Breezy on Tuesday. And around 3 o'clock Pacific time, I realized that they'd cut off the monetization on my channel. So I don't have monetization at this point. So that's also why when you guys log in to watch the shows, you're not seeing commercials. So at this point, don't have it. I need to wait for 30 days and I will see about getting that back. I can reapply after 30 days. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I've tried to make some adjustments to the content on the channel to change that so that the monetization will come back. But in the meantime, we're going to keep on rolling. We're going to keep working on building this channel, working the community, building that up here on this community as far as YouTube community. I'm saying here inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer, trying to bring you guys the best content. And one of the things about this is it was pretty frustrating at first when I saw it, and in different conversations that I've had internally with people that I listen to the most. This is a good opportunity for me to think about what we're doing here and try to come up with ways to bring better content to the 49er fans. Staying true to who I am and at the same time. And, so I've been doing a lot of thinking about what I want to do with this channel, what I feel is the best thing. And what I've come to, and I got some conversations with other people I'm going to be talking with here just to get better. But I'm going to say this channel is one of the reasons that I do this is because I'm passionate about football. I've been passionate about the 49ers for a long time. And, this channel came out of a lot of work with some other folks that helped me to get better at actually speaking like this on screen to y'all. And I just want it to be a place that you can come and you can get straightforward information without a lot of weird stuff. And I mean weird stuff. My words are bad with that. I want this to be a place that you can come and get straightforward 49ers content, get to the latest news, get the latest updates, get your questions answered. If there's any one thing that I wish that this channel would be is a little bit more interactive. would love to be able to have call-in shows and have a lot of different folks call in. I know people get a little nervous about that, so that's one thing. But I would just really like to try to make this a strong community of 49er faithful, where we can come in, we can talk about the games, we can talk about transactions, we can talk about the wins and the losses and where the team is going. For myself, one of the things that I hope you enjoy is the film breakdowns. That's one of the things that I know a lot of folks comment on, after the game, is that they can't wait till the film breakdowns come up. So that's going to be a focus of mine going forward. And I'm also trying to figure out some ways that I can make those even better than they already are. Right now we do them as a live show and I don't come back to them later, but I'm looking at trying to come up with ways that I can make sure that I'm getting the information out to you, maybe doing a little bit of coaching along the way, as far as coaching you guys up so you understand, maybe see some things that you haven't seen before, whatever. And that's really what the direction of the channel is going to be. So, it's a lot of fun. But I just want to make sure that I answered that question. So Lucas, that's what's going on there. And thank you very much for asking the question. Thanks for being a member. You're always one of them. And it was great to get a chance to chat with you during the 49ers game there against Tampa. So let's get into it real quick. Let's look at some grades. That's, the 49ers, free agency just barely kicked off on Monday. The legal tampering period, as they call it, the LTP portion of free agency had just kicked off. And before, they make a big splash. It was Javon Hargrave. We learned it today that his name is Javon, listening into the press conference, watching him do the stream on Zoom today. And this guy, if I was going to give a grade for Javon Hargrave on this signing, this is an A to A+ signing. This is the 49ers understanding a mistake that they made back in 2020. If you follow me on my other social media platforms, especially over on Twitter, I've been hard on them, thinking that you look at this, you look at the 49ers and they screwed up with DeForest Buckner. That's just, they know it. DeForest Buckner, the difference between having DeForest Buckner on this team and going through the last 3 seasons without DeForest Buckner comes out to about $3.1 million in salary cap space. That's it. And that's something that could have, and the way that I get to that number is you take what the salary cap hit was in 2020 for Kinlaw. You take the salary cap hit for Brandon Ayuk in 2020, and then you subtract that out based off if they had kept Buckner and given him a contract similar to what they gave to Hargrave, and then you just stay at your normal spot there of 31, and at that spot take a receiver, like T. Higgins, who was taken 2 spots after what the normal 49ers draft spot would have been. So at 33, the Bengals got T. Higgins. So if you have Higgins and Buckner on this team instead of Ayuk and Kinlaw, it's a difference of about $3 million. And that's something that you could do where, there's always a way that you can move money around. And I think they could have kept him, but they didn't. And so the good part here is that the 49ers, like I talked about just a minute ago with the channel, you do things and you make a move that you think you need to make here, and then you realize that that wasn't the right way to go. And so you need to make an adjustment over here. And I think the 49ers understand that they missed on that deal. I've seen a lot of comments where we wouldn't be having this conversation if the Javon Kinlaw pick had come out, and that's correct. Exactly right. So from that standpoint, it's just they learned, and now they have Javon Hargrave, and Javon Hargrave is one of the best pass rushers, defensive linemen in the NFL. Thomas Luttrell saying, I watched a video from another content creator that said Hargrave isn't a run stuffer. Is that true? Well, he's not a run stuffer. And when you think he's not a run stuffing defensive tackle, does he play the run well? Yeah, he's going to be fine against the run, but he's not necessarily a run stuffer. A run stuffer is more like a DJ Jones, right? He's a more Javon Hargrave is a more athletic defensive tackle, defensive lineman. So he's not a run stuffer, but he's good against the run, Thomas. So I think that's where maybe there is a little bit of a difference between what you heard from somebody else and where Hargrave is. I didn't hear it, so I can't speak to what they said, but I would say that Hargrave is fine against the run. What he brings to the 49ers is an increased pass rush, but he can still play the run pretty well. So um, that's not a bad thing there. And you look at what the 49ers have done right now, and I think the 49ers defense, like I said in the beginning of the show, I think they're better right now than they were in um, back at the end of January in Philadelphia in that NFC Championship game. This is one of them. With the addition of Javon Hargrave, even if you have Drake Jackson as your starting defensive end opposite of Nick Bosa, you have added sacks to this defensive line. More sacks, more pressure on the quarterback is going to make it easier for your defensive backfield. And, speaking of that defensive backfield, let's just get to the move that the 49ers made yesterday, and that was the signing of Isaiah Oliver. The former Atlanta Falcon comes to San Francisco. I think the addition of Isaiah Oliver makes their secondary better in coverage than it was last year. Isaiah Oliver as a cover slot corner is better than Jimmy Ward. He is. He hasn't played on a team with the pass rush that Jimmy Ward played on this year, that's for sure. Philadelphia doesn't have anything like the 49ers pass rush. Yet Isaiah Oliver was able to go out and post a quarterback rating allowed of only 72.4, I believe the number was last year. Oliver's played collegiately at Colorado. A teammate of his during his time at Colorado was a former 49ers cornerback Ahkello Witherspoon. You might remember Witherspoon from the 49ers took him in the 2017 draft, the first draft with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch here. Witherspoon and Oliver were teammates, like I said. Oliver came out the following season, was a second-round pick as well. Struggled, though, right out of the bat those first couple of years. Struggled on the outside. I've seen some folks on other social media platforms asking about Oliver in terms of, outside corner, slot, wherever. Actually, it's actually a question at the Press Democrat blog site, 49ers.pressdemocrat.com, where they were asking about, where does he play? Isaiah Oliver was brought in to play corner. He, like I said, his first couple of years, he played outside corner. He struggled. 2020, they moved him inside, and immediately he played better. Then in 2021, just 4 games in, he tears up his knee, gets lost for the season. So that was a tough break there. But then he comes back, misses the first few weeks of the season in 2022. Kind of similar to what happened with Jimmy Ward in terms of missing time there. He comes in and plays well throughout the rest of the season in the slot, to where by the end point of last season, there was a lot of folks around the Falcons organization saying that Oliver should be one of those guys that they really try to go after to re-sign to bring him back. So I really like the signing. I think between the addition of Hargrave in the middle and Isaiah Oliver in the slot, this 49ers defense is better today than they were at the end of January in Philadelphia. Now, that doesn't speak to all the depth. I know the 49ers have lost a number of players, but when you look at the players that the 49ers lost, most of those guys were depth pieces anyway. You look at on the defensive side of the ball, Hassan Ridgeway going to Houston. He wasn't around the 49ers at the end of the year because he was injured. Emmanuel Mosley, he wasn't around the 49ers at the end of the year because he was injured as well. Azeez Al-Shire, he was a role player. That position as the third linebacker doesn't get on the field all that much, but when he did, he was pretty good. And then you had Samson Ebukam, pretty good defensive end. Doesn't give you a lot in the pass rush. He only gives you 4.5 to 5 sacks a year. That's where he's been over the last 4 years in his career. So he doesn't give you a lot there, but Ebukam's a good run stuffing defensive end. But in terms of the pass rush, not there. And so that's why you take Ebukam, 5 sacks, 3 sacks for Jackson. That pretty much balances out. It's a little bit off. But then you get not Ridgeway, but Javon Hargrave in here, and you get his 10 sacks, and now you have a defensive line that's getting more pressure on the quarterback. They also lost Charles Omenihu, another depth piece, inside-outside kind of guy. I think that's where Cleveland Ferrell comes in, and we'll get to him in just a second. But you get Cleveland Ferrell in here to fill his role. And I think this 49ers defense is in a really good spot right now as it stands. I see some really good questions in here. We're going to get to them. Don't worry. I see your question, Tom. When I just haven't gotten over to the offensive side of the ball yet. Just been talking about the defense. But again, Isaiah Oliver and Javon Hargrave, two really good additions for the defensive side of the ball. And then also the other one from yesterday was Cleveland Farrell, the former, if I can get this right, the former Las Vegas Raider comes out, and the 49ers were able to pick him up yesterday. I think Farrell was the fourth pick in the draft in 2019. So you look at what the 49ers have done so far. They picked up a guy who was a heck of a player in Hargrave. Oliver, a former second round pick in 2018, who moves right into the starting lineup. And they get Cleveland Farrell, who isn't a start. He's not going to. I don't think he's going to come in and start for the 49ers. But this is the reclamation project for Chris Kocurek this year. You look at Kocurek's time with the 49ers, really starting from 20. I would go to 2020. You might be able to go further back on this, but in 2020, they bring in Kerry Hyder. Hyder had a really good season with Kocurek during their time together in Detroit. Went off to Dallas, struggled mightily, got back to Kocurek in 2020. Has a terrific year, 8.5 sacks, a career high. Cashes that in for a big money deal to go up to Seattle for 2021. Falls off, and they don't, as a result of his issues there, he's back with the 49ers in 2022, but he was able to cash in off of that year. Then you look at 2021, and there was another deal there for the 49ers in 2021 with Arden Key coming from the Raiders, and they were able to get him to where he got a nice contract to go to Jacksonville, and now he's a $21 million contract player this year. And then this past season, it was Charles Omenihu, who I think is the guy. Omenihu was a 6th round draft pick of the Houston Texans. 49ers picked him up for peanuts. The 49ers picked him up for a 6th round draft pick from the Texans in 2021, right before the trade deadline, and they turned him into a really good player and somebody who got a bunch of money in this year. So Cleveland Farrell, going to be a role player. You look at him and his sack numbers aren't there quite yet. His pressure numbers are pretty good though. He's a really good run defender as well. So that's one of the nice pieces about it. And he's a guy that has that inside outside versatility. So let's see how it works out there. And we'll see what they can do. If they can, how Farrell fits in. They're going to add more guys on the defensive line for depth purposes and for competition purposes. So I don't think they're quite done yet, but the way that they have it right now, the 49ers along the defensive line, just looking at the depth chart that I put together, again, this is my take on it. You have Jackson, Armstead, Drake Jackson, Nick Bosa on the edges, Cleveland Farrell now on the edge. Inside is where they have all their guys. One of the other names that could go on the edge, we'll see, is Alex Barrett. He's on their practice squad right now. So some folks have him penciled in as a defensive end 2 right now, and that could be the case. We'll see what they decide to do, but there is a spot there for the 49ers to add another defensive end to this mix. On the interior, though, Hargrave and Armstead are number 1 and number 2. I think 3 and 4 are Kevin Givens and Javon Kinlaw, and then as far as your 5 and 6. For right now, Khalid Davis and T.Y. McGill. The competition really is going to be there to see if anybody can unseat Javon Kinlaw behind Hargrave and in that second team role. So pretty good defensive line for the 49ers. And then that brings us to the other side of the ball. See some folks with the offensive side talking about that, and heard him talk today, and it was Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, the former New York Jets quarterback, the USC Trojan, who was taken with the 3rd pick in the 2018 draft. This is an interesting one because the 49ers, the way that they structured him, Sam Darnold gets more money is getting more money than pretty much every other quarterback of his spot in the NFL at this point. You look at what Baker Mayfield got in Tampa to compete for the starting job there. It's not as much as Sam Darnold. You look at the numbers that were just signed by Gardner Minshew, who I think is going to compete for the starting job in Indianapolis. He's on the lower side. Darnold is a little bit higher up there, and he has an upside in his contract to get it up to $11.7 million based on playing time incentives. He's at 4.5 and go up to 11.5 based on playing time incentives. Here's the way that I look at the Sam Darnold signing. There's two things going on here, Sam Darnold. Number one, Sam Darnold is the 49ers going to their insurance agency and saying, I need this. Sam Darnold, the first number one thing, he is insurance. He is insurance for Trey Lance. He is insurance for Brock Purdy. He is insurance for both of those guys because Lance hasn't been able to stay healthy. We don't know where Purdy is right now in terms of his ability to come back. There's, you can speculate and say that he's going to he'll be back by week 1. You can speculate and say he's going to be back during training camp, or you can say he's going to be gone for the first half of the year. So we're not really quite sure where Brock Purdy is. And then in terms of Trey Lance, he's been injured. He's got the ankle thing he's coming off of. He had a second surgery, if you remember, late in the season in late December. They're expecting him to be fully cleared by the time on-field OTA activity begins. So we'll see what happens there. He's insurance. He's also here to compete. And there is going to be a quarterback competition. If it is between just Trey Lance, if Brock Purdy's not healthy, it is going to be Sam Darnold versus Trey Lance for the starting quarterback position. If Brock Purdy is back during training camp, it is going to be Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Sam Darnold all competing. Let the best man win. The 49ers, these guys are all young. The 49ers have 2 guys that were taken at the number 3 spot in their respective drafts. They have a guy that was taken at the end of the draft who's played better than those other 2 guys have played at any point. But here's the thing, right? Trey Lance and Sam Darnold have never played with Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel, and all those pieces, along with having Kyle Shanahan calling the shots. Neither one of them, neither Sam Darnold or Trey Lance. I've heard it a lot about Trey Lance. It was one of the things that was a common refrain from the ardent supporters of Trey Lance was, well, he hasn't had a chance to play with X. You look at what Sam Darnold's played with in his career, and he hasn't had anything close to X either. I understand he played a little bit with Christian McCaffrey during their time together in Carolina, and that's great. But that doesn't mean that he was playing with George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. It also doesn't mean that he wasn't playing for an offensive coordinator like Kyle Shanahan. Sam Darnold's played for 5 different offensive coordinators in career. In his time in Carolina, Joe Brady got fired. That was the offensive coordinator his first year in Carolina. Joe Brady's out of the NFL. Actually, I think Joe Brady might be a quarterback coach now, but he's not an offensive coordinator anymore. He was replaced by somebody else and whatever. And then this past season, Ben McAdoo took over as the offensive coordinator in Carolina. Say what you want about Darnold, but he was 4-2 in his 6 games this season for the Panthers. He had 1 turnover, had 1 interception in the first 5 games. He was 7 touchdowns to 1 interception in the first 5 weeks that he played quarterback for the Panthers this season while going 4-2. He had a couple of picks in the last game, a game that they won. But other than that, he was doing okay. So we're not sure where Sam Darnold is. Again, he's had 4 different head coaches in 5 years. He's had 5 different offensive coordinators in 5 years. Now he comes to a 49ers team, and Darnold in his press conference today was talking about how excited he is. And it was the one word, even he said it quite a bit, that he was excited, and he pointed to the fact that he kept saying excited, and that's definitely one thing. And if you're a starting quarterback or been a starting quarterback in the NFL and you have a chance to play for for Kyle Shanahan, I think this is a make or break opportunity for Sam Darnold's career, just like I think it's a make or break year for Trey Lance in terms of his career here in San Francisco. Trey Lance is at a point where the 49ers need to figure out what they're going to do with him because of the contract. So we'll see how that all works out. So the Sam Darnold signing, I would give that a B-. I think that he did a pretty good. This is one that I like the upside. The one thing that I've heard a lot when you look at Sam Darnold, and it's very similar, sounds very familiar to me from what I heard from Kyle Shanahan before last year in an interview that he did, where he talked about Trey Lance and how you can see it. And if you are on 49ers Twitter at all, you can see it there too. You have all these people who are posting highlights of Sam Darnold. You can pick out throws where he does great things, but he doesn't do it on a regular basis. And some of that is, I did a film breakdown of this back in 2021 when there was some thought that he might join the 49ers that year prior to the draft. There was some thought the 49ers would trade with the Jets and bring in Sam Darnold. There was a good number of folks who were saying do it. There was a good number of groups that people saying don't do it. I did a film breakdown with Grant Cohn on his channel. We both walked away from that saying no to Sam Darnold, but holy moly, look how awful that offense is. You got wide receivers in the same spot all over the place. There's like total lack of separation, all kinds of things like that. So we'll see what happens with Sam Darnold. I'm excited to see what happens in training camp. I'm excited to see what happens during OTAs. I'm looking forward to watching Trey Lance and seeing how he's progressed. I'm looking forward to seeing if Sam Darnold is better than what we thought. And the other thing to remember here too is I don't think the 49ers are going to sit with just 3 guys. I would expect them to bring another one in. Look for the 49ers to draft a quarterback as well. They're going to have, I think they'll have 3 active quarterbacks heading into training camp. We'll see what happens with Brock Purdy, but they can still roll with 4. They did that in 2021. They had 4 quarterbacks for the first half of training camp, and then they cut Rosen. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, Kevin, that's, it was interesting to hear Darnold mention starter during his presser day. He's clearly been told he's not the 3rd quarterback, and he's either QB2 or backup with options to start and financial incentives. I kind of got that feeling as well. And listening to what Sam Darnold said today and what was said during the Taylor Heineke press conference out in Atlanta today, very different sounding press conferences. Here you had a quarterback who mentioned starting, talked about competing. I think all 3 of these guys, I think they've all been told, we're going to put you all out there, and the guy that gives us the best chance of winning is going to be the guy. Now, last thing on this is during the combine, remember John Lynch met with the media, met with the national media, met with the Bay Area guys. And then after meeting with the Bay Area guys, he sat down with Matt Mayoko for a discussion on the podcast that Matt Mayoko does with Jennifer Lee Chan. And the question came up about draft spot and Brock Purdy, having been the number 7 pick in the draft and the 7th round draft selection, and then Trey Lance being the 3rd pick. And the response from John Lynch was basically, that doesn't matter. Once we get them in the building and we start practicing, especially now 3 years down the road, it don't matter. And we always want to. I'm parsing his words down greatly, but that's basically what he said. And that's the way you do it. You bring everybody in. You give guys, a guy that's a number 3 pick, you're going to give him a few more chances of failing before you pull the trigger on getting rid of him. But right now, if Sam Darnold comes in and is better than Trey Lance, there's a chance that he's going to start. That's how competitions work. So we'll see how it works. It's going to be a lot of fun there. Let's see what else we got. Luke Walsh in the house. He says, "What's up? Sorry, just got in late. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's good. Good to have you on board, Luke. Good to always have you on here. Like talking to you, as well as everybody else. We got the East Coast Red and Gold podcast. Who that was a fun time yesterday on their channel. They kept trying to get me in trouble though with their questions, but I had a good time over there. So thanks for having me on, guys. That was a lot of fun. If you haven't checked it out already, go check out the show from yesterday. The first half I'm on there with them, and that was pretty fun. Let's see what else we've got going on. Just kind of scrolling through the comments really quick. Lucas says that he doesn't like the depth at outside corner. They either need to draft somebody or get a veteran. I really like the draft class from what I have watched so far, and I think they're gonna they're gonna add. They're not done yet. They have 59 players under contract. Let me just pull this up really quick. You look at the cornerback position. You have Lenore, Ambry Thomas, Travarius Ward. That's really your depth at the outside corner spot. So yes, I would agree. They're probably going to need to bring in some other folks. Isaiah Oliver has that inside outside. Maybe Sam Womack is a guy who they're expecting. Womack was a guy they tried to work in at nickel. He started the year off there the first couple of weeks of the season. So you basically, Lenore, Ward, Womack, those are probably your top three with Ambry Thomas fighting for it. So that's a good call, Lucas, that they do need to upgrade their depth at that spot a little bit. And so we'll see the direction they go. And that might be where we see some moves here still in free agency. And as you mentioned already with the draft, some moves in the draft. Kevin, I appreciate you with the suggestion on the monetization. Once I'm able to get back to monetizing, the advice on the membership options, and that I think might be a great way. The more members that we can get, the better it is, because I really like to have the memberships are great, because when I'm doing shows like this, the guys that are members that are actually paying a little bit of money to be a part of the channel, you're going to get your name called first, and so that's it. And so we'll see how it works out, and I'm looking forward to that. We'll see. Hopefully that'll all happen up down the road. Lucas says that appreciate all the content. Just keep going. I would love to call in more often, but your shows are often during the night when I'm sleeping. Totally understand. That's one of the hard parts about it. And then already answered your question, Patobo, in terms of dealing with Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. We'll get those super chats rolling again. You're right, James. So that's I had a question from Tom Bragg. He wanted to know about the right tackle position, what's going to happen there. And so let's get to that. I put that one down under re-signing. So, the 49ers have made a number of moves to re-sign their own players. They've brought back Demetrius Fanagan-Fowles, we talked about those earlier. And then on the offensive line, they bring back Jake Brendel at center, Colton McKivitz. Right now, if you were looking at the 49ers roster, Colton McKivitz is the guy you write down for your right tackle spot to start there. You put that in pencil because you're hoping that you can erase it. When you look at Colton McKivitz, this is a guy who has played well the last couple of times he started. He played okay against the Rams. He was actually, that's not true. He was pretty rough against the Rams in Week 18 down in LA in 2021, but the 49ers were able to figure out a way to win that game. Trent Williams himself said that Colton should have started the NFC Championship game later on that year. And then, you look at what he does and what he brings to the table. McKivitz, I think, is a run blocker, probably at the same level, maybe a little bit better than Mike McGlinchey. He's kind of like a slight upgrade over Tom Compton, right? Tom Compton stepped in for Mike McGlinchey, and the 49ers went all the way to the NFC Championship game and were on the doorstep of going to the Super Bowl. And McKivitz is very similar to that. Now, I don't see them using free agency to fill that role. I think it's going to be Colton McKivitz against Jalen Moore against a rookie. I think they have some targets in the rookie class that they're going to go after. I think they're going to try to roll the dice here a little bit with McKivitz to start with, and unless they can get one of these rookies that they're high on, that they can step right in the lineup. Now, remember, Spencer Burford was a 5th-round pick last year, and he started day one. He was a starter throughout the process. So maybe they're rolling the dice a little bit and thinking that they can do that 2 years in a row. Mike, Chris Furster, their offensive line coach, does a great job getting those guys ready. He's going to have his work cut out with him with McKivitz. But think of it this way. This point last year, the question wasn't about right tackle. A year ago at this time, the question was about right tackle, about center, about left guard, and about right guard. All those spots were up for grabs. I don't even think by this point they even knew what was going on with Alex Mack in terms of actually having it be official. So 49ers offensive line in a much better spot. The Jake Brendel re-signing, I really like that. I think Brendel is a very athletic center. His numbers from the combine show that he struggles a little bit in the against the run. He's not a bully in terms of being able to just drive people off of the ball, but he's an improvement in pass blocking for the 49ers over what they'd had in the past. Of course, you can find a player or two where he screwed up during the season, but for the most part, he's been pretty good. Colt McKivitz, I went through him. So to answer your question there, Tom, I think the 49ers are somewhat set with what they're going to do at right tackle, but they're going to add to it. I just don't see them adding a bunch of players to it through free agency. It's probably going to come during the draft there. So we'll see. SnarfTube, that's a good one. He says, it seems all the content creators, writers that have stated that Brock Purdy is the starter. I don't remember John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan ever stating this. Is Brock Purdy the projected starter? I would think that right now, the problem and what makes this even a discussion, I think, is that Brock Purdy injured his elbow with that UCL tear. If Brock Purdy doesn't get injured in Philadelphia, I think this question and this the whole thing around the quarterback position, especially with Brock Purdy, is much more clear. I think it's a very clear. If Brock Purdy had not been injured in the NFC Championship game, they go into this offseason with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance competing for the starting job. And I think that Brock Purdy would have the leg up in that competition. So to say that they've come out and said that he's the projected starter, no, they haven't. They can't because they don't know if he's going to be back. The injury, the timetable to return, 6 months, puts him back around the end of preseason, right before week 1. If he beats that a little bit, he's going to be back in time for some training camp. The thing with Brock Purdy, and what you need to understand, or you probably do already, you guys are pretty smart on this stuff. It's not like he's going to show up 6 months after the surgery for the first time, and the 49ers have no idea what he's capable of. He's just going to show up at the end of training camp and be like, "Hey, Brock, how you doing? We haven't seen you in 6 months." That's obviously me being a little bit of a smarty guy. He's going to be working at the 49ers facility. He has a throwing program that he will start 3 months in. So he just had the surgery in March. In June, right around the time of mini camp, he's going to start throwing. And he's going to ramp himself up. And we'll find out more at that point where he is. That's going to be our next time period to find out really where he is in 3 months. If at that point things are looking good, he may be able to follow the same plan that Nick Mullins, who had the same surgery, followed, which meant that he was back and ready to go for 5 months. It was 5 months post UCL surgery that he was cleared. So we'll see. So at this point, no, we don't know. So right now, the way that it is because one thing I will say is this. This is the one thing that John Lynch did say. He did talk about how Brock Purdy played like a starter. That is one of the comments that he did make. So there is that. Let me try to keep talking for a minute so I don't bore you guys. But there was a comment about Purdy that he saw during this. Again, this was at the scouting combine. In that interview with Matt Mayoko that was on their podcast, and this is what he said. He was asked about who the starter is, the comments that were made by some of the players, in particular George Kittle this offseason. This is John Lynch. I think Brock played like a starting quarterback. His guys had his back because of the way he picked up his team. I think Trey will tell you that, but competition's a great thing. It brings out the best in everybody. So, again, didn't necessarily say it, but the 49ers aren't going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. 49ers in 2021 told you there wasn't a competition between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo either. Also, and that wasn't true. There was a competition absolutely going on. How do you know that? Because they told you that. They didn't tell you that at the time, but they told you after. They didn't want to put extra pressure on Trey Lance, making it seem like there was a competition, but there absolutely was. John Lynch alluded to it right around the first preseason in 2021 about how Trey Lance was putting pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo. He also, started getting more and more reps with the starters as that went on. And you don't get reps with the starting offense if you're the backup. How do I know that? Well, because last year in training camp, Trey Lance was the clear-cut number one quarterback. How many first-team reps did Nate Sudfeld or Brock Purdy get in training camp? 0. They got none. The only time that they played at all with the starting group might have been a little bit in the Minnesota game and a little bit in the game against Houston in the preseason, but it wasn't something that they ever worked on during practice. At least during training camp, the practices are open to the media. Not once did that happen. So you knew that last year it was Trey Lance's team. There was competition happening in 2021, and if Trey Lance had stayed on the trajectory that he was on at the start of the training camp, he would have won the job. He would have been the starter in week 1. The reason he wasn't is because he plateaued. He stopped making big plays. The more reps that he got with the starters, there was a leveling off. Kyle Shanahan talked about this. So we'll see. But no, he's not. You look at this right now, like I said, Javon Hargrave, just kind of recap. I give that an A-. Sam Darnold a B-. Isaiah Oliver, that's a solid B. I think he's an upgrade over Jimmy Ward at that spot in the slot. I think that's where we're going to see him. Cleveland Farrell, that's a solid, C signing. Player has high upside. That's why he was taken as high as he was in the draft. But Chris Kosarek's going to have to bring that out of him. Then in terms of this offseason so far being very 49er-esque, Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, T.Y. McGill, Kevin Givens, those guys all brought back to play depth pieces on the 49ers. Jake Brendel, a starter. Tayshaun Gibson fills a hole. He's going to be the starter in the secondary next to Talanoa Hufanga, but expect Gibson to probably not be on the team next year. I would expect them to use a draft pick at safety. And then you have Tabor Pepper coming back, and Pepper is one of the best long snappers in the league. Was perfect during his tryout for the 49ers. I remember them talking, Richard Hightower talking about that quite a bit back in 2021 about how when Tabor Pepper had come in and gone through his workout, how all the snaps on the field goals are perfect with where the threads were on the ball and all that kind of stuff. So you look at the 49ers are in a really good spot, really quick. You look at the guys they've lost. Jimmy Garoppolo, we don't even know what's happened with Jimmy Garoppolo in Las Vegas. He was supposed to have his introductory press conference today, and that didn't happen. It's been pushed off till tomorrow. We'll see if Jimmy Garoppolo goes through his press conference tomorrow or not. Maybe that's a Carlos Correa type of deal. I don't know. I'm totally speaking on something that I have no idea about with that because they're all the way out in Vegas and I'm here in California. But Jimmy Garoppolo leaves the 49ers. They lose Mike McGlinchey. McGlinchey, I think, is the biggest loss because I just think that he played at a much better level. But we've seen this team do a good job without stellar right tackle play. Hassan Ridgeway, good depth piece. Jimmy Ward, solid veteran leader. Emmanuel Mosley, a guy who's when he's healthy, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. Unfortunately, hasn't been able to stay healthy. Azeez Al-Shire, really good number 3 linebacker for the 49ers. Wasn't going to beat out those top 2 guys. He ends up in Tennessee. Samson Ebicom with the Colts. Again, 4.5 to 5 sack a year guy. Daniel Brunskill, that's a loss for the 49ers. He's a really good depth piece on that offensive line. His ability to play all across that offensive line. And then Charles Omenihu. And it's a bummer to see all these guys leave. They're all really good players. The fact that so much talent left the team and so many guys were sought after, it shows you how deep this team was. There's a reason why everybody was talking about the 49ers having one of the best one of the best rosters in the league last year, and the only question being the quarterback spot. Stovey 4x4 says Lance hurt his finger too before the season too, didn't he? So that set him back also. Yes, it did. He injured that was against the Raiders in the final preseason game. He dinged him up. But what's interesting about that is didn't set it. They went into week 1, 2 weeks later, asking him to throw the ball. Remember, he threw the first touchdown for the 49ers in the 21 season in Detroit. They rolled him into that game a few different ways early on, and then as the game went along too. So yeah, it might have set him back a little bit. I think what set him back more was, I don't even know if it was a set. I guess it's a setback, but they wanted Trey Lance to play in 2021. He made the start against Arizona. The knee injury hurt him, right? Pushed him out. And Kyle Shanahan said, going into that Colts game, that they were bummed that Lance was injured because they were hoping to get Lance on the field a little bit more. I think if he hadn't injured himself in Arizona, if he hadn't gotten injured in Arizona, he injured himself. But if he hadn't gotten injured in Arizona, he probably would have stayed on the field. Mariners weren't showing a whole lot at that point. They were struggling. And so that was an opportunity. His knee was injured. Jimmy Garoppolo stayed in. This team started rolling. By the time Lance was ready to go again, the team was winning games, and they just stuck with what they had. And he got his opportunity week 17, showed some good things, and he took over the job last year. So good stuff there. And then CB says, Jack, seems like Niners brass are restructuring a lot of contracts this offseason. Now that the top free agents are almost all off the market, do you suspect a biggest move on the way? Well, right now with where the 49ers are with their restructuring, they've only restructured unless there wasn't one that happened today that I'm not aware of. They've restructured 2 contracts. They did one with Travaris Ward, and then another one with Fred Warner, freed up close to $20 million in cap space. There's about $40 million more that they could restructure if they want to go out and make a big move. So we'll see. I'm not sure. I think a big move for the Flyers would be a guy like Yannick Ngakoue. Ngakoue fits their mold in terms of a wide 9 pass rushing defensive end. He would be D Ford, but healthy. So I think that might be the direction they go. I was also I liked Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, but I don't think he's going to be somebody that comes to the 49ers right now, not with the moves that they've made so far with Gibson and Isaiah Oliver. So we'll see, but I don't foresee that. And the way that the 49ers will do this is if they get ready, they have to now be before the season, before free agency opened up on Wednesday, they did not have to be cap compliant when they made their moves. They could, just because they weren't actually signing anybody. So now as they do it, they would have to make some moves. So if there's going to be restructuring that goes on, you're going to see they might agree to terms with player X, then you'll see a restructuring because that player can't sign his contract until it's going to be cap compliant. So we'll see where they are on this. Yeah, and then going back to the quarterback thing. Exactly. Front office isn't going to say who is 1, 2, and 3. Best man up wins a spot. I'm still on board Team Trey, but we've seen the youngest quarterback in the room in the NFL, so hopefully one gets us to the Super Bowl. The 49ers, that's the thing. The 49ers Super Bowl room, they have 2 guys that are 22 and a guy that's 25 that's been in the league for 6 years. It's going to be 26 in a couple, I think by the time the season starts. So they've got a really young quarterback room, and that's, I think, partly why – and the other thing too, last really quick, is on the quarterback stuff, it's young, and these guys are all making about the same amount of money. And I think that's why you put them all out there and you just make it a hell of a competition and let these guys go after each other. The only thing I say is that you have to make sure that you pick one by week 1. Pick your quarterback. You pick a guy and he's your ride or die. Once you know that the season's dead, that's when you make a change. I think Kyle Shanahan understands that too. I think that's why we saw him handle the way he did back in 2021. I think we would have seen that last year with Trey Lance, if not for the injury. So look at this 49ers free agency right now, and I think they're in a good spot. Like I said, I think their starting defense is better than they were a year ago. Look at their offense. Their offense, although they lost their right tackle, their offensive line might be better than they were last year. And I say that because Jake Brendel's going to be in year 2 as a starter. Aaron Banks in year 2 as a starter. Spencer Burford in year 2 as a starter. I think you put all these guys in if they have a year, if they can continue to grow, it's going to be good stuff there for them. And then really quick, the last one, Tom says, should we re-sign Robbie Gould or sign Eddie Pinheiro? That's a tough one. And the reason that it's tough is because Robbie Gould, if you're expecting to be in the playoffs, man, Robbie Gould's money. You know that he's going to put the ball through the uprights if you're inside 50. And the reason you like Eddie Pinheiro is because this is a guy who can put the ball in the end zone on kickoffs. He should be less expensive than Gould, but he doesn't have the big game kicks that you've seen so far out of Robbie Gould. So I think that's why it's a question mark as to the direction that they go. I kind of lean towards Robbie Gould in terms of field goals, but Pinheiro would be. That's why it's tough. And the Frontiers defense has been so good, and if you just gotta. I would say Robbie Gould. You're asking me a question. I'm going to give you an answer. I'm going to say go with Robbie Gould over Eddie Pinheiro, or as Stoving 4x4ing says, draft a kicker and get cheaper. And that's the other way to go there too. You can draft a kicker. You can draft the kid Jake Moody out of Michigan who hit a 60-yarder during the playoffs, the college football playoffs, I believe it was. And he's going to be really cheap, even if you draft him in the 3rd round with one of your comp picks. So we'll see the direction that they go there. Can Jason Poe start at center or right guard, then kick someone out to right tackle? He's not going to start at center. Jake Brendel's going to start there. That's Jake Brendel's role. As far as right guard over Spencer Burford, I like Jason Poe, I think, more as a right guard than a center. He's a heck of a player. He's got those quick feet. That's what's so cool about him, right? He does so well with moving. It's kind of the same reason why they like Jake Brendel so much. It's a possibility. It is a possibility that they kick that Poe at right guard pushes Burford enough to where they try Burford at right tackle a little bit this year. We'll see. I remember my first experience with Spencer Burford was during rookie minicamp, right after the draft. And so it was just the rookies there. And you could tell that Spencer Burford was a different cat than all the other rookie offensive linemen that they had there. You could even Nick Zakel, who was a draft pick as well, but you could tell that Spencer Burford was different. When he moved, you could tell that he was quick, how quick he was. When he struck with his hands and pass protecting, or even in the run blocking stuff that they were doing, you could hear it. It sounded like Rocky Balboa punching the meat. You guys are probably old enough to remember that in Rocky 1 where he's punching the meat in the freezer. But that's what it sounded like. You could hear the slap when he'd hit. So really like that. And I do think Spencer Burford can do good things. I just don't know if they want to move him out from guard to tackle, or if they just want to let him continue to develop it at right guard and draft somebody that they can develop with McKivitz there at right tackle. So we'll see the direction they take them. That's another one to look forward to. That's a good one. What should our expectations be with Kalia Davis? And then Juwayo says, make sure you sign Robbie Gould, 29 for 29. I say that's why I'm kind of, if you're wanting to spend money on your kicker, you go ahead and bring him back because you're expecting to be in the playoffs and you want that consistency and you don't want to have to worry about it as much as a rookie in that spot. So I get you there. And what should our expectations be with Kalia Davis? With Kalia Davis, I would say the expectations are he's going to be a rookie. Right. I mean, he spent a little bit of time. He was spent all of last season around the team. Didn't practice until the end of the season when they were finally able to open up his practice window for a little bit there. Kalia Davis is the guy whose body type tells you that he's DJ Jones. So if you're looking at a run stuffing guy, I think Kalia Davis is an athletic run stuffer. I think that's the thought there, that he's going to be he's a little bit shorter, a little wider. This guy used to play linebacker in high school. Transition to defensive tackle in college. Expect DJ Jones with a little bit more speed. That's the expectation there. He's not going to be a starter. He's going to be a role player, and that's good for him as well. He's going to be pushing. He's going to be pushing all those guys ahead of him. But I like the athleticism that he brings. and it's a good one. Of all the offensive linemen, who has the best shot at taking Brunskill's spot is that rotational piece? Jaguar wants to know. I don't know if that guy exists right now on the 49ers roster. I don't know if they really have that at this point. Just kind of looking through on their offensive line, maybe Nick Zakelj. If you're looking at somebody that's on their active roster from last year, it'd be Nick Zakelj. Zakelj is a guy who played tackle in college, can play guard, took some snaps at center, worked at center in the offseason during his time in college, did some work at center last season with the 49ers in practice. So Nick Zakelj might be that guy that you're all, Mr. Do Everything guy. Beyond that, we'll see what they do at right tackle too. Again, if they find a rookie that's good enough to start, then that opens up Colton McKivitz and Jalen Moore to be a rotational guys. And Nick Zakelj can be more of an internal rotational guy. McKivitz has starts. He started a game as a rookie. He made starts as a rookie at guard as well, did Colton McKivitz. So Farmers have a lot of guys. Those Zakelj, Moore, and McKivitz all have versatility at different spots, as does Burford. So you guys asked me that one earlier. So a lot of versatility there. But right now I would say Nick Zakelj probably has that versatility to move around all three spots like Daniel Brunskill did. Jason Poe, a little bit more of an inside guy. Leroy Watson, more of an outside guy. Those are on their practice squad right now. Let's see. Of our linemen, who has the best chance of taking over as Aaron Donald's daddy? I saw your question last night, Jaguayo, to Larry Kruger on this one. I thought Larry did a good job of explaining really what Brunskill did so well. But as far as being Aaron Donald's daddy, I think the guy who really is Aaron Donald's daddy is just Chris Verster, knowing how to teach his guys to take advantage of them. And like I said, Larry did a great job last night on his show. That you reached out and asked him something similar to this, and he did a great job of explaining how it's all about using his leverage against them, and we'll see how that works for him. So there we go. That's it. I'm gonna cut it off. We're at an hour now. I want to do, just like I said, I took a little bit in the beginning as far as the channel goes. If you have questions on that, go ahead and you can rewind it for later. But I just want to say thanks to everybody who took the time to tune in. We actually had one of the bigger viewings today in terms of the number of folks watching this live that we've had in about a week or so. So do me a favor, keep it locked in here to Inside the Farmers with Jack Hammer. Also get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com. That's Inside the Farmers blog at the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. They're the ones that helped me be a credentialed reporter with the 49ers. So keep an eye on there. And like Luke says, he says that Cleveland Farrell, he seems like he's good at setting the edge, sniffing out RPOs. First step. Yes, that's right, Luke. He's a very good run defending defensive lineman. So keep it locked in here, channel Mike. In terms of my DeForest Buckner's comments on Javon Hargraves and that deal, I kind of touched base on that a little bit earlier on in the program. Let's just say that the Flyers made a mistake there. So thanks a lot for everybody who's tuned in. Do me a favor, hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Get yourselves over to 49ers.pressdemocrat.com, the Inside the Farmers blog there. Check out the written words of what I put out there. And then make sure, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit it. Inside the 49ers here with Jack Hammer. Thanks a lot for everybody that tuned in. We're going to work this thing back, and in about 30 days, hopefully we'll be back to monetization, and I'll be able to keep pushing forward because I really need that piece of it to help with everything I do at this point in terms of trying to become a full-time beat reporter for the San Francisco 49ers. So thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be talking to you soon. Be back tomorrow with some new 49ers news. Take care, everybody.